evening and welcome. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Nevada City Council to order. Today is Wednesday, August 24th, 2022, and it is, I think it's around 6:31. We don't have our clerk tonight, so we're going to go straight into the land recognition.
Nisenan people are still here among us today, though they are nearly invisible and their story continues to be excluded from history. We understand we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the near genocide of their people. As a resident or visitor in Nisenan land, we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people, as well as the campaign to restore tribal sovereignty through federal recognition.
In the Pledge of Allegiance, if everybody could stand and do whatever you do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so our wonderful city attorney is going to be joining us from Zoom today. Hi, Dean.
Good evening, Council.
Member Peterson?
Here.
Vice Mayor Fernandez?
Here.
Mayor Fleming?
Here. Okay, now it's the time for any agenda modifications. Would anybody like to make any changes, recusals, any of that stuff to the agenda? Full consent items, I guess we could do that later. Well, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda and then a second, if possible.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
First by Daniela, second by Gary. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 5-0. We don't have any presentations tonight, but we do have time for public comment. Government Code Section 54954.3 provides that any member of the public may address the City Council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exception, does not allow the council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. The council cannot take action on non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. Please note that comments from the public will be also taken on each agenda item at the time it is heard. Do we have any public comment here in the room? Oh, yes, we do. Hi, Shivati, come on down.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for hearing me today. So I'm here representing Waste Management. I'm Shivati Karki-Pearl. I'm the public sector manager. I'm here as a follow-up to a letter, a memo we sent a couple of days ago to the city manager talking about updates to our services. As you may be aware, Waste Management, just like many other organizations, is impacted very strongly with labor shortage. Experience in the last few months, delays to service for our customers. We prioritize picking up trash, which is MSW, within the week, and recycle sometimes may get pushed to the next service day. Same thing with delivery of carts or exchange of carts, that is second priority, unfortunately, to actually picking up the trash. And we either sometimes don't have the supplies, even though we've ordered it months and months in advance, or we don't have the labor and we have to distribute it accordingly. Our managers are out on the streets, on the trucks, trying to make up for it. We're also skipping the salary progression to the highest wage for those that qualify. We've broadened the candidate requirements and even doing on-the-job training until we are sure that they pass our safety requirements. So we're doing a lot as far as trying to recruit. We do ask and we're going to be having ads out shortly. One of our major push is trying to get people to sign up for the online or the app where they can then opt in for notifications. I think one of the major systems that sends out messages based on what you've selected for notification, whether it's text or email or a voice message, but we cannot send it out if you haven't opted in. So we ask everybody to please sign up, sign on with a company called Bye Bye Mattress, and we started a mattress recycling program, which typically it costs you about $7 to $10 to take a mattress in there. Right now with the new program, you can take up to 5 mattresses free of charge. They will be recycled, and it's all funded with a program where there's like a $10 charge, I think, when you buy a mattress. So that funds the recycling of mattresses. And it's been a long time coming, and we've finally got that. And we started the carpet recycling earlier this year. So between the two of that, we're able to divert more items away from the landfill. Those are my announcements. Thank you for everybody's patience and understanding.
Thank you, Shabati. Appreciate it.
When you, the opting in for notifications, when you guys create a campaign for that outreach, just let us know and we can help get the
Yes,
word out.
thank you. I
Yeah.
did post something on Facebook a few days ago, so that can already be shared out.
Okay.
And then we're hoping to have some more ads in theaters and other places. So
Well,
hopefully
feel free to
we'll spread-
always send that and we can help spread the word for the mattress recycling
Okay.
as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any additional local public comment? There we go. How you doing?
My name is Douglas Bianchi, and I live 124 Boulder Street. Thank you for your service, council members. I appreciate that what you do is sometimes tedious and boring, but very important. I voted for every one of you, and with enthusiasm, I'll say. So I really appreciate the level of talent, intelligence, and attention to the city matters that exist in this council. I appreciate it very much. I believe you all want the best for the people of Nevada City. I was surprised when at the last meeting the council voted to place Measure W on the ballot without discussion. Without public discussion, especially of an issue so far-reaching and potentially divisive, people speculate, with good reason. You have invited them to speculate, as it is their only means of getting a grasp on how and where their city is being led. Did the council know in advance how the vote would go? Could be. How did they know? Take your best guess. What resources has the city invested in Measure W? Pick a number. Does the council anticipate litigation should Measure W pass? Crickets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Please don't force the citizens to use their imaginations to answer questions such as these. You still have the opportunity to retain the people's trust and keep this justifiable speculation from descending into rumor. Please take a little time, say 3 minutes each, and tell us what you think of Measure W and why. I urge you to keep your reputations intact by doing the public's business in public. Thank you, and again, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Doug. Do we have any additional public comment here today? If not, we're going to check online.
Okay, we do have some of you. We have Stephen Greenberg. Go ahead, Stephen.
Hi, thanks very much, Mayor and council members. I'd like to echo what Doug just said and take that maybe just a little bit further. As you know, and I'm not going to reiterate it in less than 3 minutes now, but I submitted a formal request for reconsideration under your standard 8.5, which allows a member of the public to request reconsideration of a council decision. And I'd like you, under that section and Section 7.7 Agenda Request Policy, at the end of this meeting, when you get to your future agenda items, I'd like you to agree to place that on your next agenda meeting. By the way, just drop a little footnote here. Section 8.5 B2 of your standards, reconsideration at a subsequent meeting, it incorporates section 10.8. So I'm trying to follow all this so I can make sure I dot my I's and cross my T's when I'm speaking to you, but there is no section 10.8. So there's a cross-reference in there that maybe the city manager or city attorney can look into, but there's a reference to section 10.8, but there is no section 10.8. In any event, my understanding from the elections office is even if you reconsider your decision to place W on the ballot for November, it's too late for them to recall it. It's going to be on the ballot. Now, I hope that's wrong, but if it is correct, then what's the point of reconsidering? The point is what Doug was talking about, as far as I'm concerned. You got to a decision, the decision out of 4 options that you were presented with, well, actually 5 options you were presented with, you got to a decision at your last meeting with 0 discussion between council members, 0 statements from any individual council member as to why you were voting the way you were voting, and 0 statements from any council member that were responsive at all to the public concerns that were expressed. I don't recall seeing anything like that in the 30 years I've lived here, and I'm shocked. I know a number of other people are, and when I ask for a request for reconsideration, it doesn't need to be with a different result. It can simply be you need to reconsider the process by which you reached that decision. As Doug said, explain your decisions, explain your votes, discuss it amongst yourselves in public, and reconsider your own standards and ensure that nothing like that is going to happen again going forward. One last point, if I haven't, I don't see the time.
Yep.
Just as one example, the wisdom of having placed it on the, not having placed it on the ballot, but calling for study. 5 days ago, Mr. Pucci released his impartial analysis that will be in the ballot pamphlet. And it says, among other things, the SB 9 doesn't apply to developments located in local historic districts designated by ordinance. The California Attorney General has stated this is a narrow exemption, and it is unclear, I'm quoting now, it's unclear if the exemption will apply to the proposed HND. So we have a statement from the city attorney that we don't know if Measure W is applied legally or not. That should have been done before placing it on the ballot. And I'm sure I've run out of time by now.
Yep. Thank you,
Thanks.
Steve. Thank you,
Thanks,
Stephen.
Stephen.
I'll hope for the end of the meeting to hear your decision to reconsider.
Okay, do we have any additional public comment?
We do. Matthew Coulter. Go ahead, Matthew.
Hi, guys. Thanks for being there. Yesterday, I was in the Pioneer Cemetery at the top of Broad poking around, and that little square definitely needs some attention. A lot of fuel buildup up there, a lot of Scotch broom grown up. It's unfortunate that with the PG&E tree removal all the way up the street up West Broad, that it then stressed the trees that had their entire life grown up sheltered from the other trees. So there's a huge cluster of dead trees now in the Pioneer Cemetery also that are a fire hazard. Unfortunately, they're big. It'll take a, experienced crew to remove them. I think really that PG&E should be contacted and held accountable for the damages that they did all the way up West Broad, that now, of course, after the Dixie Fire, all of a sudden they do underground, which the representative right in that very chambers said that they don't underground before the Dixie Fire. My other concern is that PG&E rents the poles to the telecoms, and basically they just cut the poles off and undergrounded the power lines and left all the comm cables up there on those poles. So aesthetically, we really didn't gain a whole lot. And I was just watching them put in new poles a few feet up from where they undergrounded. So the undergrounding was just in a very, very small area. And it's a mess up there. So I hope that PG&E can clean up that disaster around Luna and up West Broad and up East Broad. And yeah, that can be wrapped up before winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
If you would like to speak on any items not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Lower corner of your screen. We do not.
Okay. You look surprised.
One of the
Is that
panelists had
confusing?
their hands raised. I was like, what?
Okay, it's time for the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved in one motion. There's no separate discussion of these items, and I am looking for a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
I so move.
So we have a first by Luke,
Second.
second by Daniela. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, passes 5-0. All right, on to our business. All right, time for Amy. Consideration of an extension of time request for filing of a final map for a project known as Gracie Commons at 400 Gracie Road, Nevada City, California. Hello, Amy.
Good evening, thank you, Mayor.
Would you like me to bring Glenda?
Yes. Yes, I'll go ahead and introduce, we do have the applicant here, can answer any questions if you have them for him. But I'll provide a brief summary here. So property owner and applicant Glenn Chris received city council approval in 2009 for a tentative subdivision map known as Gracie Commons. The project included a map to create 16 units and 12 buildings, including a fourplex intended to be an affordable option with unit sizes under 600 square feet and a duplex with unit sizes under 1,000 square feet. State legislation allows several automatic extensions for tentative maps between the years of 2009 and 2014 in response to the economic recession at that time. Council then authorized a 2-year extension in 2017 pursuant to that allowed under the city's municipal code. Finally, another automatic state extension was allowed in 2021 in response to the COVID pandemic, making the August 24th, 2022, which happens to be today, the new expiration date. Chris is requesting another 2-year extension of his tentative map entitlement, which includes ancillary entitlements, including a conditional use permit for an unit development, an architectural review for 16 residential units, including the fourplex and the duplex. Chris has provided a statement, which has been attached to your staff report, to provide some context to his extension request. Council may authorize a second 2-year extension, even though it's not expressly permitted under our subdivision standards. That's based on section 16.04.910 of the city municipal code, which allows council to conditionally grant requests by subdividers so long as the request doesn't violate the subdivision map act. In this case, the map act states that a legislative body may grant extensions not exceeding 6 years, but our local code does limit it to 2 years. Chris is available on Zoom to address any questions you might have.
Okay, I guess first we're going to ask for some public comment. Is there any public comment in the room or online for this item?
There is none online.
Okay. All right. Bring it back to the table, as Aaron would say. Who would like to go? Does anybody want to start out here? Luke? Right ahead.
I do have a question about the project itself,
Okay.
which is, if the Gracie Commons project proceeds and is built, how will it affect our HNA goals? I'm especially interested in whether it will help us move forward in our moderate housing goal.
So when this subdivision was approved with the housing units, HCD was a little lenient on how we determined the affordability traits of each unit. And so we could have said the fourplex and the duplex met moderate or below income, and we just gave them the explanation based on their size. Now the HCD has gotten a bit more robust, and they do require that things be deed restricted, or we can provide a market study that shows that market rate those units would be affordable to whatever income bracket we're saying. So under the current way that HCD would receive that, we would have to characterize it as an above moderate unit.
Is there anything we can do to encourage the developer to have those units be moderate income units?
And I can say that was the intent. It seems that it was the intent when this was initially approved, that those be considered affordable units, and maybe the duplex at a moderate level. We can certainly ask the developer to do that. I don't know that I don't believe we can add a condition on the map at this point.
So you said that was the original intent. I'm going to cut in, is that okay?
That's right.
Do you know that the intent is now different? Has it been stated differently?
No, it's not different. It's just that the way we have to report to HCD, that's the way it's changed. So,
Got it.
yeah, they won't accept it as without some kind of study. They won't accept it as affordable.
Well, I would be interested in what the applicant has to say about that.
Well, he's available on the phone if you'd like to ask him directly.
He is, he just needs to unmute himself.
Mr. Chris?
If you can hear us, Mr. Chris, can you unmute yourself?
Mr. Chris, can you hear us? Wave your hand or something. Yeah.
Hello.
There-
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, sorry.
No worries. No worries. I'm sure you heard our robust discussion so far. I think Councilmember Cece has a question for you around deed restrictions and affordability of the units.
The question, Mr. Christ, is will any of the units that will be built in Gracie Commons qualify as moderate income housing?
I think most of them will actually. The original proposal has a 4-unit building that is under 600 square feet for each one of the units, and then a duplex that's under 1,000 square feet for 2 more units. So that's 6 units right there that are definitely on the affordable side. The other houses that would be constructed are not meant to be, they're certainly not mega mansions. If you look at the site there, they're small units, small houses. And I'm not sure, frankly, currently, what is the regional share of housing concept in terms of what constitutes affordable or medium range, but they are not upper scale houses by any means that would be sold on an upper scale level.
Thank you. I fully understand about the houses. It was the duplexes that I was mostly interested in.
Well, they are on a, my understanding of what used to be the standard, which was based on the square footage. 4 of the units, as I say, are going to be under 600 square feet. And the other 2 units would be under 900 square feet. So based on, market standards of the area, they would be certainly within under the affordable range for an apartment building or for a condominium eventually.
Thank you. Amy, would that move us forward in our moderate?
It might not be too difficult to run our own study.
Market survey.
And if we could figure out a way to do that easily, we might be able to use that data to justify it to HCD.
Okay, thank you.
Gary?
Amy, I'm going to ask Amy first because I believe, and you were talking about the RGA, and I'm talking about the changes. It's one thing to declare affordable housing based on what may or may not be the market cost in this area. It is a wholly other thing to have it count on our side for affordable housing unless deed restrictions and other what are largely fairly onerous commitments are made by the developer. So unless that is accomplished, they are truly not affordable housing. Is that correct?
That the HCD will, without some kind of something to justify that they are affordable, HCD will have us register them as above moderate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Adam?
No.
So for the market survey kind of concept, we would, do a survey of all the, units in town and do a scale, right? And so that snapshot in time would determine whether they're affordable or not. Is this something that is a thing or?
Yeah, I've seen studies like that done. I don't know what has been accepted by HCD for
Okay.
So that's kind of where I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough.
How, yeah.
And Mr. Chris, thank you for joining us here. And you've had a long history with this project, so we appreciate you sticking with it, I guess. Obviously the concept here was to make these units affordable by design, which is kind of a thing, but we don't get credit for affordable by design. Is there any scenario where you would work with us to sort of condition these units, as far as an affordability range, or even if we need some above moderate, right, housing, we need moderate and above moderate housing units too, just to, make sure that what we're trying to do here, Mr. Chris, is get credit for these units with the state, for our requirement to build a certain amount of inventory based on our population size. So I don't know if that's something we can certainly talk about that down the road, but I think you see what we're trying to get there too. But a 600 square foot unit in this town is not going to go for, well, these days might go for a lot more. All right, and one question I had for you, Mr. Chris, is this something you're planning on building and developing yourself with partners, or is this something you're planning on selling, or what's the goal here?
My plan still remains that I will construct it myself, actually.
Excellent. And is there a sort of time horizon that you're looking at if we give you this nice extension today?
Well, I have an eternal time horizon that's probably approaching, but I didn't consider it 10 years ago when this project was started. So I am hoping to pick it back up. What is this? The middle of the summer, probably start some of the logistics in the fall, and then next spring get serious again. We started the project in 2019 after the last extension approval, and we did site work and surveying, and infrastructure working drawings were submitted to the city and approved. We did the homeowners association documents, and I believe we submitted those to the city also. Approvals were made by the utilities, and then things kind of went sideways a little bit. And at that point, COVID came on, and my family has some particular issues that put us at risk for bad outcomes with COVID. So I haven't really been active in the last couple of years. So I am hoping to pick it up again seriously this springtime, coming springtime.
Great, thanks so much. Obviously you're aware that we need housing in this town, and these units certainly would help us. And whether we get credit for them or not, we need housing. So thank you. That's all for me, unless anybody else has any follow-up questions.
I just want to say thank you for saying that, Doug, that it's not just about the credit, that we actually need affordable and moderate income housing. So thanks.
Yeah.
And actually, we need above moderate.
We do.
That's part of our remit.
So I think any way you slice it, even without the deed restrictions, we would get credit for the above moderate, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what one of the things we're looking for besides the actual dwelling units themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm willing to support this and make any motion necessary for a 2-year extension. But if I'm sitting here 2 years from now, it's going to be a very different conversation. This project's existed for now going on a decade with only limited activity, and I've got some familiarity with why we hold those and how that works. So I'm willing to advance it at this point, but beyond this, I think we need to have a very different conversation depending upon the progress that's made in the next 2 years.
Couldn't agree more, Gary.
Fair enough. So can I get a motion?
So I would move to approve the recommendation, resolution to extend the permit for 2 years.
Second. All right. First by Gary, second by Adam. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition or abstentions? It passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Chris. We look forward to seeing that and, hearing about all the progress. It'd be great if you could come and update us occasionally and let us know what's going on if you feel like it. You don't have to.
I will definitely do that. And thank you very much for your time, Council. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Okay, moving on to our business. Consideration to accept, receive, and file audit financial statements and management report for year end June 30, 2021. Come on down, Victoria. We should have prizes.
So I've been asked just to give an overview of the process, and thank you for having me here. Of course, it was a little bit different this year because we hadn't had a CFO and we hadn't even had much of an accounting department. We had really good people in receiving cash and overseeing payables. And so the detail was there. That was good. So when I started in March, it's a process of figuring out the accounting system. There was 49 pages of GL just mushed together. And so it was a matter of organizing it and figuring out how historically the city had organized their accounts. But the process is the same everywhere, pretty much everywhere. It's building that balance sheet, starting with the assets, going to the liabilities, the fund balance, and reconciling it as much as possible to whatever details out there. So that was the process. It does take a lot of time. It's gathering all the documents, supporting documents. It's reconciling all the detail, like I said, utility billing, bank accounts, like everyone does it with their own bank account, I'm assuming, or tries to. Fund balances, that was a little bit difficult because there hadn't been someone overseeing some of that, but the detail was still there where it pulled out capital outlays, et cetera, and people were really good. I think Brian had a lot to do with that, assigning the right expenses to the right fund, et cetera. So that was kind of the process. It was back and forth between the auditor and myself. It was providing all the detail that they requested from your year. And I also had a box of detail that had been gathered at the previous audit, exactly as it was laid out for this audit, which was good because I could see where to pull some of that data. So it was helpful in that way. But that's pretty much what my process was. And it was a lot longer than this little 5-minute discussion or presentation.
Okay. Well, thank you for that overview. I think we can dig in a little bit more. I'm going to ask for public comment in the room to see if we have.
We have the auditor on Zoom to present the audit.
Oh, okay. I am sorry.
Yeah, yes. Michael O'Connor from
The auditing company.
yeah, Riccardi. Yeah, I'm sorry, Michael.
Hi, Michael. Are you there? Can you hear us?
Can you unmute, Michael, can you unmute yourself?
I have to
There you go.
see a phone number. There you go. Michael? Oh. Very good.
You're there, Michael, can you hear us?
No, I didn't.
I can hear you.
There you go.
Yeah, we have success. Hi, Michael. Vic, oh, sorry. Go right ahead.
Do you want me to go ahead? You want me to present the financials?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. It kind of the sound comes in a little distorted sometimes. So basically, I'd like to present the financial statement. So good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council of the City of Nevada City. It is my pleasure to go through the financial statements for the year June 30, 21. My name is Michael O'Connor. I am the in-charge auditor for the engagement. Feel free to interrupt me with questions at any time. I want to thank upfront Victoria and her staff for
their hard work in getting, through this audit process. There was a first one for Victoria. She did a great job, and she had a lot to digest. And I want to thank her and her staff for getting through this process. I'd like you to turn to page 1 and 2 of the financial statements. Page 1 and 2 are our audit opinion. This is our opinion on the financial statements. It's what's called an unmodified opinion. There's no modifications. It's the best you can receive. Everything was done in compliance with standards and regulations. So I just wanted to point that out. It will be on our letterhead. We do work for the city council, and our contact information will be on the opinion, on the letterhead. And if you ever have questions of me or anyone of the firm I work for, please contact us at any time. I'd like you to turn to page 13. So on page 13, this is your statement of net position, a snapshot at June 30, 2021. And I just want to point out, this is your assets less your liabilities. It comes down to your net position, the bottom line on this page. In your governmental activities, you have $16,454,949 in net position. In business type activities, you have $8.8 million. Overall, you have over $25 million in net position for the city of Nevada City. And this is on a full accrual basis. So it's like we're a for-profit company. Next, I'd like to turn to page 14. Page 14 is your statement of activities, and it shows you all your revenue and expenditure activities for the year ended June 30, 21. So it's a summary. The page starts with expenses. Governments are in the business of providing services, and those are the costs of the services. In total, you have $9.9 million in expenses. Then you come in at $2.7 million, which is in the middle of the page, of charges for services to cover those. You got some grants in there of another $1 million. Brings you down to about a $6 million deficit that's supported, that's basically covered by the taxpayers. And then you have your taxes and your general revenues supporting those services. And it comes down to this third line from the bottom on the right. You have $831,000 of revenues in excess of expenditures. And that's all I want to point out on that page. You can turn to 15.
That's good, right?
It is good, yes. So page 15 is your balance sheet for just your governmental activities. This is on a modified accrual basis. And it's similar almost to a cash basis. So in your general fund, second line from the bottom, you have a fund balance of $3.2 million. And this is a year ago, June 30, 21. You have a Measure S fund, which is a large fund for the city, and that has $479,000. Then you have a bunch of smaller funds that are grouped together, and those are called other governmental funds, and you have almost $1.3 million in fund balance in those funds. And this is again on a modified accrual basis. If we jump to page 17, this is similar to your statement of activities, except this is on a modified accrual basis, almost like cash basis. And it shows all your revenue and expenditures for the year, just for your governmental activities. If you look at the third line from the bottom, the general fund had revenues in excess of expenditures, $745,000. Measure S was $63,000. And then you have $767,000, all your other funds that are grouped together. Almost $2 million of revenues in excess of expenditures during this year. and you hopefully take that positive. This was a COVID year, so definitely COVID has had a negative impact on many governments. And that's all I want to point out in this report. Behind these pages is you have notes to financial statements, a lot more information about the city. But if you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. If not, that's all I wanted to point out on this report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Does anybody want to jump in here, or are we going to keep going?
Well, I just wanted to comment on the audit overall.
Okay.
I do not have specific questions, no.
Michael, do you have more of your presentation actually you want to go through? Why don't we finish that and then we can jump into questions?
Okay, there's one more report. And it'll just take me a few minutes to talk about it. It's a management report. And what we do during the audit is we look at the city's controls over their assets and how they're protected against error and fraud. In that report, we've only came up with 2 issues that were carried over from the prior year. And that is just developing an accounting manual, a written accounting manual, and also cash receipts, money that are collected over the counter for various reasons from various departments to their cash receipts. Documentation needs to be signed by the person who's running the cash register or collecting the money, and also the person reconciling it and supervising it. That way we can see 2 people are involved in the process. And the more people involved, then the less risk for fraud and error. People checking each other out, supervising each other. So, and creates a separation of duties. So those were the only 2 things that we mentioned in that report. And that's all I wanted to point out there. So feel free to ask questions now.
Great. Thank you, Michael. I think we're first going to look for public comment. Seeing none in the room, we're going to look online and then we can bring it back to the council table. Gabby, do we have anybody out there in cyberspace who wants to talk about the audit or comment about it?
If you'd like to talk about this topic, please raise your hand in the lower right-hand corner or left corner of your screen. We do not, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the table. Garrett, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the presentation and congratulations, Victoria. I know it's a short time, but this is a good audit. This is a good audit, but it's important, I think, to keep this audit in context this is the first year in my, we've had a really clear, viable budget. So this is the first time that the audit has as much to do with the past as it does with this one here. So it's going to take us a year or so, or a couple of years to really live into it and really see where we stand. I'm always looking at the management piece of it, and it seems to be in very good shape. That's where we, sometimes struggle. I think the balances is good. I mean, considering that Joan spent prior to Sean's arrival, spent most of the entire year rebuilding the budget. And then we had a very quick audit that followed that. So we'll learn more as we go, but right now I think it looks very good. We're on the right track and we're going in the right direction. So,
Thank you, Gary. Anybody else here? One of the things I think Sean mentioned to me was that this is sort of the last audit of the before time. Is that kind of, before we had
Next to the last.
Yeah, so we're going to have one more audit that sort of covers that wonky period.
This gets us almost caught up. So if we would have had it before we adopted this current budget, we would have been caught up and then immediately be jumping into the audit of last year's budget. But yes, this is the before time audit, but very important in that everything that's been presented to you in the last 2 years' budgets are on unaudited numbers.
Yep.
So this gives a basis for last year's budget, which you adopted in January, for those fund balances and those positions to be accurate. And then now when we audit the last year's budget, it will be based on this audit and that point moving forward. And then that will get us to the point where next year we will audit the current budget that you're in and be entirely caught up. But with this with this audit being clean and the positions reconciled to what Victoria and the team have come up with, it brings us into a much more comfortable position to know that the numbers are accurate and appropriate, and that the budget that we created is for this year is moving us in the right direction without, any glaring issues in the rear view.
The numbers are based on solid foundation. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. So there we go. And that wasn't the way it was. There was no foundation before. I wouldn't say that, but it was a moving foundation. It was like quicksand, right? So one of the questions I have is, Michael, did you do the previous audit, or is this your first audit with us?
No, we did the prior year audit. I think this is our third year.
Great. That helps. So the year prior to this, year to year, were there any glaring, irregularities? I mean, obviously you would have put it in the management report and things like that, but was there anything you noticed, picked up upon? Did you see the impact of COVID really glaringly in the numbers that you could sort of point to? And Victoria, you can obviously do this as well.
So say that again, the impact of COVID?
Yeah, I was just saying, obviously you mentioned COVID had an impact. I was just wondering if we could, if there's any way to quantify what that impact was in the numbers that you reviewed.
Well, I don't know if I could, quantify the impact. I don't think I can do it. I mean, it definitely did have an impact.
Sure.
And I know the staff shrunk. There was a lot of turnover during the year. That was a big impact. But also, I mean, you're dealing with efficiency in a lot of governments, and people working remotely or working from home and not working as efficiently, and that slows down all processes.
Sure.
And that's a big, that's an issue there, and then there's a cost to that as well. But to quantify it, I mean, I can't.
Yeah, I was just looking for some light to be shined on certain parts of the the audit. But we can talk to Victoria. I'm sure she knows where that impact
There
is.
are a few, yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of them are mentioned in MD&A.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's it for me, Michael. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything we want to add? I think we're good. We really appreciate your work and the presentation and keeping track of our numbers.
So this, if you were so inclined, this different than a normal receive and file, which you normally see on your consent agenda. This would be an accept, receive, file. As he noted, the audit form works for you as the council. So ultimately, it's your audit to accept, receive, and file, and then provide any direction to staff. So.
Okay, can I get a motion to accept, receive, and file the audit, financial statement, and management report for the year ending June 30, 2021?
I move to accept, receive, and file the audit, financial statements, and management report for year end June 30th, 2021.
Thank you, Adam.
Second.
All right, first by Adam, second by Daniela. I think we need to do a roll call on this one since it's money. Gabby, you want to do a roll call for us, please?
Councilmember Cece?
Yes.
Councilmember Conley?
Yes.
Councilmember Peters?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
And Mayor Fleming?
Yes. All right, passes unanimously. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Victoria.
All right. Nicely done.
All right, the next item on our agenda is a consideration of award of professional service contract with TJKM Transportation Consultants for a parking demand study in amount not to exceed $75,000 and to authorize the city manager to sign the contract. And for this, we have our wonderful engineer and public works director, Brian McAllister. Hello, Brian.
So we've issued a request for proposal for a parking demand study, and we received 5 qualified
Proposals from experienced consultants that specialize in parking studies, traffic studies. So the 2 study areas are the Downtown Historic District and the Seven Hills Business District.
And the purpose of the study is to determine how much increased parking capacity is needed, but also to provide implementable strategies to balance the parking utilization for all users. And it's to maintain economic vibrancy of the city. So we know that parking availability is limited, but it's a balance of utilization too. It's not just straightforward determination that we need more parking. So in the request for proposal, we outlined a suggested scope of work, and then we allowed the consultants to come to us with their suggested scope of work, and they've certainly got more experience in this area. This particular consultant has done studies just like this for similar sized towns all throughout California. And so they, four different staff members scored the proposals based on criteria that was in the RFP. And it was not just about price, it was about qualifications, experience, their approach, and there was scoring criteria that was outlined in the proposal. So we independently scored the proposals, and this consultant rose to the top, and we're recommending that the contract be awarded to them. And just to give you a brief synopsis of what they'll be doing, they'll be doing data collection, and that would involve economic, business license info, zoning and property use data. And so they help determine the parking demand based on that, and then do surveys with business, probably an online survey, and then a public workshop to get information from everyone, business owners, property owners, general public, visitors, whether or not they're influenced by the perception of parking as it relates to their shopping here and using the parking, whether or not it turns them away. And so that's a lot of the things that will be in the survey. The survey, I think, would be an important element. And then the amount of time spent looking for a parking stall, for instance. And then with all that data and maps showing parking and then data of actual vehicle counts on the ground at various times of the day, they work towards a deliverable that would come to City Council with recommendations, and not just for capital improvements, but meter times and rates and all the above. So it's a lot of information, but just wanted to give you an overview of the purpose of the study and what we're trying to achieve with this. And the amount would be negotiated with city manager and the consultant. It's based on hourly rates, and it would be funded 50% by Measure M, which can be used because it's on-street parking, and 50% by parking meter funds that have been set aside for this purpose. And that's for any off-street parking that wouldn't really be part of Measure M.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. Sure. Appreciate that. I guess we're going to go for public comment in the room. We're going to look online as well, Gabby, right?
If you would like to speak on this topic, please raise your hand. We have Jim Morris. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion on the parking, and I think the study is probably a good thing. I did appreciate Brian's experiment with the diagonal parking, and unfortunately we didn't get a chance to let that even work out. But my feeling is, in addition to automobile parking, we should look at bicycles, because right now I think we have a deficit of, bicycle parking in places where people need it and want to use them. And also, if the study finishes out, hopefully a parking garage will not be a recommendation, because I think the long-term liability and maintenance are a big factor in parking structures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Would anybody else like to speak on this item? Please raise
That makes sense?
That makes sense.
We do. We have Matthew Coulter. Go ahead, Matthew.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, guys. Just curious about consultants from out of the area coming in and telling us how we can make things better versus people that live here and are familiar with the traffic patterns and problems that we've had repeatedly over the years. The consultants are great. They come with a nice presentation. I'm referencing the Gold Country stage with their reference of their $32,000 for a consultant to recommend that the bus change its logo to the Gold Country Nevada County Connects from Gold Country Stage. The reason being that the young people don't know what a stage is. So now we're tied up in like this giant ongoing multi-$100,000 process of rebranding the buses, bus stops, literature, all this stuff. So basically, point being, sometimes the consultants don't have the area's best interest in mind, and they are bean counters. And because we live in such a unique area, I think that the regular old consultant that looks at a flat piece of paper in a grid work city will be blown away at our horse trails in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Anybody else like to speak to this item? Please raise your hand. We do not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Gabby. All right, let's bring it back to the table. Do we have anybody who would like to comment? Lou.
Well, simply that this couldn't be more timely. I was walking today in Seven Hills Business District and spoke to the manager of California Organics and said, "What can we do for you?" And he said, "Parking." Simply.
Yeah, I mean, it's been timely for a very long time. This is exciting. I'm excited about this. I'm excited to learn more. I think this is the beginning of being able to address our parking issues, and I'm thrilled.
Thank you. Adam?
Yeah, I'm just encouraged that staff considered 5 different proposals, was it? That makes me think you guys are pretty thorough, and hopefully we'll get good results out of this and have a clear idea of where to go next.
Excellent. Gary?
Yeah, first a question. Did you check references to talk to anybody they've worked for before?
No, we can still do that. I mean, it's cities that we're familiar with, and we actually looked at some of those studies before issuing the RFP. We looked at some of the studies that were done for those other cities, for examples.
I did check. I mean, I knew somebody, so I mean, they've got a great reputation. But I think there's value in that. And as we go forward and speaking to the people who actually managed contracts with the contractor consultant before, I think there's value in that information. That's why I asked. I mean, I think it's a very good proposal. I think they'll absolutely get us what we need. I think it's really important to understand that parking cannot be done intuitively by folks that think that there's a good idea to do this here and this here. It really has to be understood as an entire system of movement and motion, and that's why I support this very much. I note that they're going to provide a website, so the data will be available to folks to look at. So it looks really good, and I think you guys you've got somebody good, and I very much look forward to this study being on the parking committee with Lou. So,
yes, our parking committee folks. Now you have a lot to do. There's like many things in our town, there's a lot of noise, and I don't know if it's confusion, but there's a lot of conversations around parking and what we need and what we should do. And Some of that is intuitive, I don't think any of it's really data-based. Except by anecdotal data, by looking at when we have a parking problem and, during an event, or, when I see cars parked all the way up to my house at Pioneer Park, I know there's a parking problem. I don't know how big the parking problem is, so this data will really help us, get that information and give us a holistic picture of really what our, parking is. I have a perception of it. I'm sure it's not accurate. So this will help. Thank you. I mean, this is what I think we asked for this on some level, on a direct level. And so thank you for being responsive and doing the arduous RFP process. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we don't have anything else, I think that's it for this topic.
I'll make a motion. I believe we have to take action on this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Check that.
That I move that we, I don't have this, that we approve the, thank you.
Do we award?
Okay, that we award the professional services contract with TJKM and for a parking demand study, an amount not to exceed $75,000, and authorize the city manager to sign the contract.
Second that.
All right, first by Gary, second by Daniela. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Any abstention? Passes 5-0. Okay, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Amy. All right, time for our very quiet tonight city manager's report.
It's very unusual.
I know.
Is that why we're getting through so quickly?
Yes.
Vote.
That's all right. I'll take it. Whatever gets us done. I would like to thank the council and the planning commission and our employees and a little over 100 of our community members that have participated in some fashion in our strategic planning process thus far in the workshops. Additionally, we released a survey this week. You can find it on our city website on the bottom left-hand corner. It's a really complicated button that says strategic plan survey. So just click that button, it takes you right there. And you can also find it on social media. Like I said, we released it Monday. I think we have a little 50 responses so far without a lot of hype. So for those 6 of you still on Zoom and 112 of you in YouTube land, go there right after the meeting. But we will be scheduling a strategic planning session with the council where we'll bring all that information forward next month. What's that?
112?
112 online. Look for the bi-monthly newsletter. It'll be going out early next month. So before the council meeting on September 14th. So everyone should look for it either in the mail or on social media or on our website. 2 items that come up before the next meeting or that will close on September 5th for Labor Day, and that we'll be hosting a 9/11 National Day of Service and Remembrance ceremony. That'll be obviously September 11th. It's a Sunday this year, beginning at 8:46 a.m. at Robinson Plaza. That time has some meaning. And a very simple ceremony with the blowing the flag there in Robinson Plaza to have staff. We will have information about that in the newsletter and social media and other places. On a personal note, September 1st will mark the 1 year since my family lost our son, child Valerian Jameson Grayson. Incredibly grateful for the time we had with him. And honestly, he's the reason that I'm here. So I appreciate you all inviting me. Hope that I can stay. I know that everyone experiences loss in their life. I know from my previous career that not all of us handle it well. We like to pretend that we handle it well, but we don't always. So that's not a character flaw. That's what psychologists or just regular people might call a normal response to an abnormal situation, or just being a human being. I have a little bit of opportunity to speak to the public sometimes, and I appreciate that. So I would just like to share that if you or anyone that you know is in crisis, get help. It can be better, and there's lots of options. But you can call, text, or chat through 3 simple numbers, 988. I don't think a lot of people realize that, like 211 or 411 or 911, there's a 3-digit number for crisis and suicide prevention hotline. So it's 988. So I know that's a little somber, but with that, on your last meeting, you requested that staff prepare with a consultant's help a study in relation to the proposal for Measure W. And that work is in process to bring back to you at probably your second September meeting. And so in light of some of the public comments and that study coming back to you, Mr. Mayor, with your permission, I'd like to have the city attorney, Dean Cucci, make a couple comments to provide some clarity on what's coming back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Dean.
Good evening. Good evening, council. Thank you very much. So ordinarily, I don't respond. It's not my role to respond to public comments or really to get into, which I won't, into any legal advice that I confidentially give my client or not. However, under these, it's not really a however, because I'm not going to do that at this point. But to address some of the comments that were made, a lot of times the public sometimes don't have a full understanding of the voter initiative process. And I know that this has been stated before at council's past deliberations on this matter, but I think it warrants stating again in terms of we do not control. This is not a city-sponsored initiative. And we do not control the timing or process or procedure that we're placed in if a proponents group gathers the enough signatures and crosses the right T's and dots the right I's. It sets up a very specific procedure and timeline that we have zero control over. So under this particular circumstance, I know that some of the questions have been, why are we not acting sooner and why is this not happening before then? Well, our obligation to respond, our really involvement doesn't begin until we know that this is actually going to qualify for the ballot, and the city really cannot take a position at that point on that measure. So I just wanted to clarify that even though people say they want to hear from council members, they want to hear what is the city's position on that, I'm not going to get into reasons that the council is or is not taking a position, or whether they will, this is going to sound cryptic from an attorney's perspective, or whether they will in the future. I will say that whether the council takes a position on the initiative one way or another carries with it potentially significant legal implications. And so the council is being advised by my office as to those implications and being given advice in the nature of when is appropriate, when might not be appropriate to either take positions or not take positions. And I know that I'm probably going to get some pushback in terms of what does that mean, but I can just say that our legal advice to my client, the City of Nevada City, is in the city's best interest in keeping us, out of litigation and away from costly battles, unnecessary battles. As Sean just mentioned, we have ordered an independent report and analysis. But I will state that even if we had ordered the independent analysis before, or the council had elected to take the 92, 12, 30 days options, it would not have changed no matter what the report said, good, bad, or ugly. It would not have changed the options the council has vis-a-vis a voter initiative. So I just wanted to say that I issued, as was mentioned, I issued my impartial analysis. The impartial analysis can speak for itself. And also just factually to state that we have in fact engaged the Attorney General in discussions about this matter. And for sometimes there are reasons that things are not being said or being said in the way that they are to protect the city's interests, kind of where we're at. And the voter initiative process is its own unique process. So with that, I will submit and stop talking, but I wanted to get those comments out just very briefly.
Thank you, Dean. I think that's helpful. There is a lot of confusion or just concern, I think, and rightly so. I think that people are used to us acting a certain way, and when we don't act that way, there's all kinds of reasons, nefarious or not, that we may be doing that. I just like to assure the public there's nothing nefarious going on here. We're not that smart. I'm not that smart. I'm not that. Motion to strike that from the record. Motion to modify.
Motion granted.
Okay, that being said, foot out of mouth, I guess it's time for our council member reports. Did you finish, Sean?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for that, heartfelt, and really, thank you for letting us know. I really appreciate that. That means a lot for us for you to share that here with us. So we got you. Anybody would like to start on our reports?
Yeah, I'll go.
Oh, there you go.
So Sean and I continue to meet and communicate with Shelley Covert and Chirp, moving forward with next steps for the Nisenan Land Back Initiative. We'll be taking a next step tomorrow. Excited to give it more of a substantive update on that soon. I do want to mention that Chirp, the Nisenan, the nonprofit affiliated with the Nisenan, are having their Harvest Dinner fundraiser Thursday, September 1st. It's at the Stonehouse. And if you'd like to see about buying tickets, you can go to nisenan.org and go under the events tab. It's one of their best events of the year. It's a really, really lovely evening. It'll be catered by local folks, local musicians, and it's just really a lovely night, and all the proceeds go to support the tribe. Adam, Sean, and I met with Eliza Tudor, the head of the Arts Council, Nevada County Arts Council, for our Arts and Culture District this week. That was good. There's some movement there. Nothing to report just yet. Gary and I met with Chief Foss, who's here today, this week. What is time? And that was a great meeting. And then Gary and Sean and I will meet with him on Friday as part of our Future of Policing in Nevada City Committee. And I'm excited to go over goals and next steps for the police department. And then finally, Tuesday, the 30th, I will be hosting with State Treasurer Fiona Ma a merchant listening session. All merchants in Western Nevada County are invited to join us. It's at 5:15 at the new Communal Cafe at the corner of Broad and Pine Street. Please come join us. There are still COVID recovery funds that the state is looking to disperse to rural communities, and she really wants to hear how COVID has impacted our local businesses. So if you are a merchant in the area, we would love to have your voice and to hear from you. To represent our community.
What day is that?
It's Tuesday the 30th.
30th.
So next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
Cool.
5:15. Yeah.
Thank you, Daniela. That was a lot of good stuff.
Good stuff.
Lou.
Hi. So we had the first meeting of the Fire Safety Advisory Council Committee with new council members Klein and Cece. We chose to have a meeting time at the third Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. We need to fill 3 committee members slots. We have 4 applicants, so we'll be thinking about that. And we heard a report from Chief Goodspeed, the vegetation management compliance inspections that he has done.
Thank you, Lou. Adam.
In addition to those meetings that those two just mentioned that I was at, there was the Chamber of Commerce Board, which was great. Seven Hills Business District folks, great. There's so much learning at all these, and I'm so thankful for all the people who show up to those meetings to educate the likes of me. Been awesome. And film festivals this weekend, which is near and dear to my heart. So I'm hoping folks turn out. It's 2 years of people watching from home, which I can only imagine probably cut into their numbers somewhat. I had a film in last year's film festival, and I can tell not a lot of people watched it because I was elected to the city council. Now my friend Gary.
Adam, what was your movie?
Where can I see it?
Yeah. What's the movie?
On the advice of my attorneys, I'm not going to discuss that here.
Okay, fair enough.
It was that bad, huh?
Gary.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah, we'll have to watch it.
I just add that there's also, Lou and I are going to start checking in on parking this week as well.
Excellent.
Just to demonstrate that we're all working for all of you all the time. It sounds like a lot of great stuff going on. I do appreciate you, Sean, keeping it human very much.
Yes.
Very much. I guess really, I just, I'm not going to go into this, but there's going to be plenty of conversation about housing going forward. But you don't have to look too hard to understand that part of our job is to protect the city. And part of that job is to protect the city from litigation. And any of you who are paying attention out there will understand why we're quiet. It's something that's really important to understand, but our job is to protect the city, and we need to do that.
And I will say it's not easy for me to be quiet.
Or me, all of us.
All of us.
There's a reason.
Unanimous consent on that.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I just love hearing all this committee stuff. It really makes me, it just warms my heart that we're out there doing the stuff that we're doing. I appreciate all of you for that. I don't have anything committee wise. I just wanted to say that, as the fire, I worked on a grant with Nancy Weber for the Deer Creek, a shaded fuel break for Deer Creek that, you guys can sort of run with. It was just for the planning. We have to do a planning grant and then we can do an implementation grant. There is another grant coming down the pike right now that's due in October to get us a CWPP. So I'm going to send it to both you guys and we can, two of us can talk about it somehow and you can bring it to the committee because I'd like them to look at that as well. I think that's it for me. I'm going to look for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we are adjourned at 7:49. I know, I was going for the record, but no, we have some good stuff to talk about. So thank you all. I really appreciate it.